Hi, Leon. Thanks for your work in week four. Just want to send you a quick video reply here uh, to what you've written in both forums for week four. You've got some really good insight, I would say, in both of the forums. And so I just want to underscore some things and maybe push you a little further on something that you've said in the first forum. The second forum, what I think I'm just really drawn to is the way you're kind of digging into what blindness means in Matthew and the other ways that characters are introduced or presented to us and not settling for an oversimplified category of those people. I think that's exactly right. And here I would say we are helped by a lot more time in the prophets because the biblical prophets use precisely these terms to describe not just random individuals, but often whole patterns of life in the community. And when we read these characters not as just sort of independent, random people, but as witnesses to something that is happening in their communities, I think we get a better sense of how Jesus's power is revealed, what it is doing, how it ripples out from a particular body to touch all kinds of other bodies that are related to it or seeing what's happening to it. One of the ways I think, ironically, that we are blind in our day is precisely by, as you say, the way that we rush to categorize people or oversimplify their lives, reduce them to one defining term. And that's not just a problem that we have as individuals in our perception, although it is that. It's a function of a whole pattern of speech and custom and conflict in our communities, socially, politically, economically, etc. And once we start to sort of conceive or describe blindness in those terms, how our patterns of speech render us blind, how the way that we organize power or prioritize some over others blinds us to people who are right in front of us so that we think we see them, but in fact, we don't see them very well at all. Then I think we're starting to get at how the prophets present something like blindness and how Jesus's power gives sight, how it brings truth, how it opens people to one another. So, uh, great job there, and just a few thoughts to keep you going down the line that you're already drawing. In the first forum, I think you got good responses to both questions. I like the way that you talked about the sequence of the three healings and the opening of Matthew 8 as moving across boundaries, ethnic, social purity boundaries. I think that's good because we sometimes reduce that sequence to Jesus crossing just one kind of boundary three times or something like that. And I don't think that works very well. They're actually distinct boundaries or barriers that Jesus is engaging in those three stories, especially as they sort of accumulate in the order in which they're presented. And we want to be sort of discerning the complexity of each scene and how it relates to the others. Then on the horizon of judgment, I'm glad you point to this sort of tension between Turner and Hauerwas because I think it's important to note that what Jesus is sending these 12 apostles to do with his power, like what he has been doing, is going to bring to the surface painful divisions in people's communities, relationships, and as you say, even family. So the sword can be the sword of the cross, but we have to clarify that the reason Jesus ends up on a cross is that he poses a threat and is sort of made killable by the sort of way his life unfolds, how people relate to him, and especially how the authorities of his people relate to him. And that is a sort of window into the kind of divisions that Jesus is bringing to the surface. They penetrate, as you say, all the way to the most intimate relationships of family, And we should ask ourselves why that is. Why is it that even in sort of household groups of family commitment is division revealed, disclosed? And I think that it's partly because it's in those most intimate relationships that, you know, our dependence, our maybe addictions, are the most intense. And so the way the kingdom of heaven comes into our life is apt to be felt, not just there as a kind of extreme, but also there because that's where you might say the truth of our life is especially expressed and in need of healing, confrontation, judgment, etc. So I think that's a way to get at what Jesus is telling his disciples that he has come to do. He has come to expose the way that people are, the way that they live, and where that can happen is where they think they're the safest, maybe where they think they're the least exposed, where we imagine that we are the most stable or maybe even united, and it turns out that we're not. So that's a good word, I think, for the ongoing power of Jesus as it confronts us today. Great work generally throughout the week. So thanks for your carefulness and look forward to more in week 5.